the chair like yesterday. But you're calling.
Oh, wow.
All right, well, thanks for joining us today.
Dave Calabro.
Notes
Love you.
Before we start, hopefully you saw yesterday, Reggie signed an extension. We'll bring him beyond 25 years with TNT. This is his 19th year with TNT, and 17th time in the All-Star game. Lastly, recently he sat down with Isaiah Thomas for Indiana Glory. That will premiere on TNT on Saturday at 4:30. Before we start, the easiest way we'll do it is Reggie's going to have a couple of opening comments, and then if you raise your hand, I'll call on you. You would just say your name and your affiliation. All right? Cool. Thanks, Reggie.
First of all, thank you guys for coming. I always love one-stop shopping. So I appreciate you guys braving the elements. I know it's starting to snow outside. So let me first start by saying it's always fun to come home, especially for an event like this. You know, I felt being raised here in Indiana, I know how the Hoosier faithful is when it comes to big events, whether it be a Final Four or huge Colts or Pacers games. We know how to do big events. And what bigger event, especially in our profession, the All-Star game, than to have it here where I feel we have the best fan base in all of professional sports. So it's always good to come home. I'm trying to preserve my voice throughout this weekend, but I'm enjoying this as well. So thank you guys again for coming. I've always had a love relationship with a lot of you people in here, including this man in red up front, as usual, as everyone knows. So fire away. I'm here.
Reggie, welcome back. What does it mean to see Indianapolis host this, to have the world here? Because this sport's become international. This is no longer, this is a big deal.
Yeah, this is a lot different than my first All-Star game in 1990 in Miami. I was still in college in '85 when it was last year in Indianapolis. Again, we know how to do these type of events, and then add to it that it's basketball. I mean, it's, no pun intended, it's a slam dunk, right? Because this is, when you think about basketball, whether it's at the high school, college, or the professional level, you think of Hoosiers and you think of Indiana. So I'm excited to be back for it.
Reggie, Chris Woodlick, CBS 4 here in Indy. Growing up in a small market team in the NBA, you see what the Pacers are able to do now with Tyrese and bringing in Pascal Siakam. Where do you see this franchise moving in, and how does it help having somebody like Tyrese kind of leading the way?
Well, it's an upward trajectory, in my opinion. I think management has done a great job of, especially when you're in a smaller market, you have to draft very well and hope those draft picks pan out. And once you start to win, I think that's when you start to get your free agents, because they want to come to a winning organization. They want to play in a style of basketball which is fun, which when you lead the league in scoring and you have a dynamic point guard like Tyrese, you know you're going to get your touches and you know you're going to get your looks. But they play a fun brand of basketball because they play hard and they work hard. And that's, when you think of the Pacers, that's all I've ever known here. And I think the fans appreciate the hard work. Win or lose, there's going to be times, obviously, those tough losses. But if you give the effort, I think that's what they respect most. So I think they're on their way up. You look at the Eastern Conference, obviously Boston is kind of separating themselves. But after that, I mean, Milwaukee, people talk about, they made the change at head coach. They're 3-8 underdog. And I shouldn't say they beat them 4 out of 5 times already, or 5 out of 6, something like that. So yeah, if I'm Indiana, why not? You know, you get locked into a series, anything is possible.
Reggie, Fieldhouse Files. I'm curious, as a guy that was the face of the franchise, considering that now with Tyrese having the keys, being involved in every kind of decision, What is that opportunity and pressure for him experiencing that now?
Well, I think we'll find that out come playoff time, knock on wood. I assume they're going to make the playoffs. I think that's the next goal, right? I think when they made the trade, people were somewhat up in arms when you're giving up a proven all-star in Sabonis, because he was an all-star in a Pacers uniform. He goes to Sacramento, they make the playoffs, he continues to be an all-star, and you're wondering about your return. But you look at this season and a little bit of towards the end of last year, but certainly this year, how Tyrese has balled out and really put the franchise on his back, and what he did in the in-season tournament to get them to that final game. There's demands and pressure that comes with that, and that's called winning. And I think the next expectation for Tyrese will be, can he deliver in the playoffs? I think that's what we're all hoping and wishing, that that's the next step for him.
James, where's right here?
Mhm.
You have a unique opportunity to be a part of something new with Sabrina and Steph shooting against each other tomorrow night. As a shooter yourself, what do you think of that opportunity to cross over in that way?
That's awesome. Because the game of basketball really has no gender. Again, you're talking to a guy who grew up in a household with the greatest women's basketball player of all time. So I am all for this. I'm surprised it's taken this long for us to kind of merge with the WNBA and their fabulous players. But Sabrina is one of the best shooters I've ever seen on this planet, but she's going against arguably the greatest shooter this game has ever seen. That's what makes it so fantastic. It kind of reminds me of that Billie Jean King type thing back in the 70s, I believe it was. So I'm excited to be a part of it, to have the best seats in the house to call it.
Reggie, regarding that matchup, who's your favorite, Sabrina or Steph, and why?
Well, I got to find out first, is Sabrina shooting at the same distance as Steph?
Yes.
The only reason why I am going to give Steph the advantage is because he's in season. Now, I know she's training for the Olympics. She's having that now, but that's different from having actual games every other day and practicing. Steph is in rhythm right now, and I know she's training and so forth. But Steph is used to these big stages. Not that Sabrina isn't, but Steph is kind of used to this.
This is Holly from China Pacers.com. I'm a Pacer for 23 years in China. You have been a
Good to see you.
you have been a Pacer hosted for 18 years. Can you tell us what's the special traits and culture for Indiana basketball? If you can choose one word to describe that, what would that one word be?
For Pacer basketball,
Indiana basketball.
I would say family. It's a real sense of community here. I kind of told this story last night when I was on the set with the guys. I think the coolest thing for me for 18 years here was come playoff time. When you would leave your house, and I'm leaving my development, getting ready to come downtown for a game, and there's kids outside with signs, with banners, posters, spent all day thinking of something to write, to put in their lawn, cheering you on as you're driving out. So when I say family and a sense of community, that's why I always felt that we were in this together. We laughed and we did a lot of crying together as well. And that's what I loved about my 18 years here.
Reggie, how much do you keep up with Rick Carlisle these days? What's your guys' relationship like, and what do you think?
We're text buddies. I can't tell you guys how much in terms of my personal development as a player and as a man to a certain degree, Coach Carlisle, Rick, has had on me. When he was an associate coach under Larry, was he and I every single day, film study and court work, footwork. He added so much to my game at both ends of the court, but especially offensively, counters, my second, third, and fourth moves, because he was always looking at the big picture. He was always looking at come playoff time, they're going to take your best 2 or 3 moves away. What do you have left? So he allowed me to think about the game in a different way. So I respect him so much. And that's why, you know, his personality is funny, because when he was with us, he was with a veteran team where his mannerisms and his quirks, we got him. But now he's been with a younger team, which I'm sure sometimes some of his mannerisms fall on deaf ears. But it's kind of been good to see how he's been re-energized with this younger team, and this development that he has with them. It's kind of cool to see.
Reggie, do you have a couple of all-star memories from the 5 times? I mean, fond all-star memories that you think about? And to follow up, back in your day, the all-star game was mildly competitive. How do you fix this? How do you make it more competitive as possible?
First of all, Bob, it's so great to see you. I love you. You know, I said I have a love relationship with a lot of people in this room. He's another one. I mean, during bad games, he would tell me the truth. And I think you and I have had this conversation when you had our little sit down in New York. I appreciate those. We just wanted you guys to be honest, and you were always honest with me when I played well and when I played terrible. So I appreciate that. I think my fondest memory, you always remember your first, right? And I remember in 1990 walking into the locker room for the first time, and there's Larry, and then there's Isaiah, and there was Jordan, and there was Joe Dumars, and there was Robert Parrish, and I'm looking at, there was Charles, Patrick, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what am I doing here, right? And, you know, it turns out, I believe out of the West and the East, out of those 24 guys, 23 out of 24 are all Hall of Famers, and some of them are on that 75 anniversary team. So that's what I remember the most, was being humbled walking into that locker room, going over to the corner, because I didn't want to look anyone in the eyes, because I couldn't believe I was in the same. Now, again, I'm playing against them every night, but it's different when you're in the same room and you're hearing the conversations of some of these greats, and you're amongst them. And I'm sure that's what Shea Gilgeous and Tyrese and some of these guys will be experiencing when, you know, a LeBron walks into the room. I mean, it's that type of feeling. You can talk about it all you want, but until you actually experience it, I think that's what makes it cool. And no matter if you're a first-time All-Star or a 20-year All-Star like LeBron, you still get up for this game. And to make it more competitive, I'm glad they've kind of gone back to the East versus West, because we always wanted to beat the West. We wanted, it was all about talking a lot of noise, which conference was better, who had the better players, and you wanted to dominate on the world's biggest stage. I mean, all basketball fans watch this game because you got a collection of the best players ever. And it was all about us trying to embarrass the West. Really, that's what it was. And when, you know, Michael would come in and he would give that talk about, we ain't losing, we want the money because there's a higher prize money to winning, but we ain't losing to those dudes. And it resonated with us. So hopefully someone's giving that speech in the locker room now that it's back to East versus West. I've had a chance to call, I believe, 3 or 4 of his games, and he has put on absolute shows in all 3 of them. And I'm somewhat in awe because you say to yourself, there's no way that someone that size should have that type of skills. But he is so personable, looks you in your eye, answers all your questions, and to be that young, talented, and so poised with the media at such a young age, it's pretty remarkable. I give a lot of credit to his family because obviously they knew down the pike that this was coming, and he hasn't kind of sheltered away from it. And I think his popularity is only growing. I believe it's between him and Chet for Rookie of the Year, obviously. But I think he's in a great place to play under arguably the best coach this game has ever seen in Pop, who's all about fundamentals and knows a thing or two about coaching big men, having David Robinson and obviously Tim Duncan. So he's in the right place. He's surrounded by the right management. So I think the sky's the limits for him, but I give a lot of credit to the family for really kind of tutoring him along the way and along this process. And he has such a ridiculous, him going to bed at 9:30 and all that. I mean, that's pretty cool. I don't know if I could have done that, but that's pretty cool.
Real quick, what do you remember about their world famous, highly rated Reggie Miller?
Oh man, they brought it up last night on our show.
I don't give them all the credit.
Did you give him the footage?
Not me, man.
It was the best. It prepared me for being up here in front of you guys and doing what I've been doing with Turner for 19 plus years. To have a chance to interview world-class athletes and politicians, and just have a chance to be in the microphone and be uncomfortable speaking in front of people. It was awesome. It was awesome working with you and having the fans come down, doing a monologue in front of a live audience, which was a little intimidating. But it was fun. You get comfortable with it, and I had a good time. We had some good shows, too. Really good shows.
Reggie, Andrew Charles with Wish TV. I know you've covered a lot of All-Star games, been to a lot of All-Star games. You know Indy can host big events. How do you think Indy is changing the game of future All-Star games, and where does this one rank, just how the setup is compared to the ones you've been?
Well, what's great about Indiana is everything is close in proximity, where you can walk pretty much to everywhere. The restaurants are all down here. I'm not sure they're used to the snow coming down right now, but everything you can get to by foot, and I think that's what makes things great. There won't be long lines and cars everywhere. Circle City makes things kind of flow down here, so it's great to have Lucas and Gamebridge, everything. All the hotels are here. No one's traveling far distances to get here. The traffic will be minimal at best, so I think that's what makes it great.
Let's do a couple more.
Steve with CBS at Oklahoma City. The Thunder is slowly climbing up the mountain again. Do you think they have what it takes to make it out of the West this year, especially with the district court here?
Well, first of all, I don't think they're slowly. I think they're there. And again, I put OKC in the same boat as the Indiana Pacers. Why not? Obviously, you've got the champs out there in Denver. The Clippers are playing out of their mind. But after that, I mean, I know Minnesota, another small market, but what have they done lately, right? So you've got a Hall of Fame, or excuse me, a MVP candidate in Shea. Chet is in the running for Rookie of the Year. Josh is great. Jalen Williams is playing out of his mind, most improved. So they have all the pieces. The question is going to be come playoff time, all right? And in the West, which is insanely, talented, it's all going to be about matchups. And they play a fun style of basketball. But what I love about them is they have two closers. And come playoff basketball, when the game slows down and it becomes half court, you've got to have guys that can close games. And Jalen and Shea can close games for them. So that's why, yes, I give them the edge, but it's going to depend on matchups on who they play. Mm-hmm.
Reggie, why do you think you developed the relationship that you developed here in Indiana, being an LA kid? What about this place resonated with you? And following up on that, what's the closest you ever came to moving here?
I think to the first part of your question, look, when I was drafted in '87, I really didn't know much about the Pacers or Indiana, other than I knew that they loved basketball here, but I didn't know much else. And I wanted to come here, and I knew I wasn't their number one choice, because we all knew who that was. But I had that I'll show them attitude. And I just wanted to come here and play hard. And I knew that they respected players and teams that played hard. And I only knew how to play one way, because that's how Magic, Byron Scott, Cooper from the Lakers, that's how they taught me when we would play every summer. And that's what they said, look, where you're going, you're going to have to play this way, which that's all we used to do anyways. So I was pretty prepared in terms of how I wanted to approach playing here. And it's funny, I don't know if you remember this. So the summer I was drafted in June, May or June. There was an exhibition game here in Indiana. And I believe David Robinson was on that world team. It was them versus the pros. And I remember my agent, Arn, telling me, was like, well, you can't play because you're not under contract. But they asked me to come play. I was like, I got to go play. He's like, no, you can't go play, because what happens if you hurt yourself? You're not insured. I'm like, but I got to go there, and I got to show them who I am, because all I was reading in Indianapolis Star was, why did they pick this skinny kid from L.A.? I was like, I got to go show them. So I remember coming to that game, and I remember vividly, because Isaiah was on the pro team, and I was playing with him, and I was like, man, I'm so nervous. And he's like, you know, in his voice, Reg, remember all those games we used to play at UCLA? Those pickup games, and you were just like out there dominating? Do that. Play like that. So I went out there and played like that. And I think I won him over, but thank God Isaiah like calmed me down before that game, because I don't know if he wouldn't have given me that talk, how I would have played.
When you look at what Tyrese brings to the Pacers, what makes you so willing to sort of hand the torch to him and enjoy that he plays with him?
Because he brings people together. If you watch Tyrese play, it's never been about him. It's been about us. What can we do to win tonight? I think he would be happy with 4 points and 24 assists in the victory, as opposed to a 40-point game and a loss. And the way his teammates look at him, they look at him like they look at LeBron. They look at him like they look at Jokic. They look at him like they look at Giannis. Like, we can do anything with this dude out there. And I see that. And that's why, you know, knock on wood, you know, health, obviously, if they're healthy, I really believe that he can carry this team to a championship. They've got to believe it before they do it. And that's why I'm excited to see them in the playoffs. Knock on wood, they make the playoffs, because they're teetering that playing situation too. But I would love to see them they've beaten all the top teams. They beat Boston to move on to Las Vegas. They've beaten Milwaukee. They've beaten Philly. They've just beat New York in New York. So these are the top 4 teams. I mean, so why can't, if I'm them saying, why not us? We've beaten these dudes. Got to believe, though.
Reggie, I know that you had a really close relationship with David Bennett. Also, we talked about that, the Reggie Miller show. Robert mentioned that. I'm just kind of curious, being a part of this organization, how did Benner and being a part of this organization maybe prepare you for your current chapter of TC?
When I was playing, because I never wanted to reveal too much to the media when you're playing. And David helped me in my relationship in speaking with you guys, some of you that's in this room, to kind of bridge that gap, because the media can be a useful tool, especially when you lock horns in the playoffs, when you're going against that New York machine, and we're just Indiana. You know, we had one paper, 4 stations, right? That was it for here. And when you're going against New York, and they've got all these outlets, so he helped navigate that. And there was times when I wanted to go ballistic after games, and he would look me in my eye and calm down, think about it before you say it, and the ramifications that can come from that. So these are the kind of life lessons that Benner has taught me that I take into everyday life, working with Turner and TNT Sports, and even at home with, my kids now who are starting to grow up and play sports. You've got to always look at the bigger picture. And there's a lot of times when you're heated in the moment, you want to just react. And sometimes that's just not the rational thing to do. You've got to look at all sides. And I think Benner helped me at a very early age, starting in the 90s with that, because I was a hothead kid and all I wanted to do was be a gunslinger, and you just can't do that. You can do it at times, but you got to have a master plan. David Benner always gave me the master, and Bill Benner too gave me and Mr. Bob Kravitz gave me that master plan as well, and Dave Calabro too. So a lot of y'all got to have a master plan.
Reggie, your relationship with Isaiah and Larry in the special.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what that was like, and what is it with you three?
Wow. It was jaw-dropping, eye-opening, and I kid you not, because when it was first approached to me that we were going to do this, at first I was going to interview Larry, and Larry doesn't talk to anyone nowadays at all. And I was like, oh, really? That's great, cool. And then, Turner was like, we're going to add Isaiah. And I was like, I don't think Larry's going to want that to happen. And he's like, no, Larry's like, he's cool with it. I'm like, really? I was like, and we can talk about things? He's like, there's nothing off the board. I was like, okay. So I went into journalistic mode, because there's a lot of things, if you guys remember, that happened in the 80s. A lot of stuff happened, and we went there. And the stories that were being told, that was coming out, and the battles I've had, and the things that were said in game and post game, it was like, and I remember it vaguely. I did my homework, but in the 80s, I remember some of the stuff being said, but you forget about it. When I was doing my research, I was like, wow, Rodman said that? And then Isaiah said that. Larry, what? So it was, you guys will be, I've never seen Larry so animated. And it was just humbling to be amongst these two and hear the stories and the mutual respect. I look at Larry like a god. I pattern my game after him. But to hear Isaiah and how he talks about the Celtics and Larry, you guys will come away with this with a different appreciation. So it was very cool. I was still a little nervous about it, but it was very cool. Very cool.
Reggie, recently you shared that experience you had with your son at the Warriors game.
Mm-hmm.
That great interaction Steph had with your son.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of being a former player, how did you feel with that experience as a father?
To me, it was the greatest moment as a parent, because it was like full circle, because I was Steph's favorite player growing up, and he was wearing my jersey when he was my son's age, and which was kind of odd because his dad is Del Curry. So for him to have that moment, which wasn't planned, this is in the middle of the game, he hits the biggest shot, runs across court, and points out Riker, my son. And in the biggest moment for him to be so selfless, where he could have been beating his chest, the place was going crazy, but he's making his way to find my son and to give him that moment. And it was right around Christmas time, and he was big man on campus for a while, which was great for him. But it just shows you how great of a person Stephen Curry is. You know, you could talk about all the accolades and then great shooter and all that, but as a person, he is a fabulous human being.
Last one, Dustin?
I wanted to go back and talk about the Pacers a little bit. How do you think they help themselves out now on the side end without losing money? How do you think they've changed? What's the sort of things you think they need to do to keep that?
Well, I think the best thing picking up Pascal would be is he's going to take the ball out of the hands of Tyrese Halliburton so he's not ball dominant all the time. And I can see the Pacers playing a lot like how Golden State plays with Stephen Curry. As great as a ball handler and passer Stephen is, he's so much better and more efficient when he's off the ball, and Draymond Green is being the facilitator or someone else is out there. And I think that's what Pascal does, is going to take him off the ball. But it also adds another closer for them as well. You don't average 20-plus points and 8-plus rebounds without being able to score the basketball and be dominant. And plus, he has championship pedigree coming from Toronto, right? So he understands what it's going to take to be successful in the playoffs. So when you pick up that type of player, I think it adds that depth to your roster. To me, Miles Turner will have to be healthy. If he's healthy and he's doing what he can do at both ends, but more so defensively, this team goes to a different level, because between Aaron Nesmith and Mathurin, those guys on the wings can get it done, but defensively, Aaron Nesmith is unbelievable. I would have loved to have played with a player like Aaron Nesmith. So they have the pieces. The question is going to be the matchup. And come playoff time, do they believe? Do they really believe? If they believe that they can beat anyone in the Eastern Conference, I want to see it, because I can't wait.
Thanks, Reggie.
But before we leave, you were talking about my son Riker, and we were kind of prepping him, about this, because he's going to have to get used to this. Come on up here for a second. I've had to face the media for a little bit, so let's give him a couple minutes, because he won't know what any questions you guys are going to have coming to him. Let's see if he's kind of ready for this. Give him softball questions, but let's see if he can handle this. Tell him your name first and go with it.
I'm Reggie Miller.
Hey, big fella, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Tell me about your dad, and what kind of father is he? Is he stern?
He's a good dad. He teaches me a bunch of basketball. That helps me.
What about homework? What's he think about homework?
Like what homework?
Does he make you do homework?
Like school homework?
Yeah, school homework. Do you have to do chores?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good job.
What's the best advice you have received from your dad now?
Just putting in the work.
James?
Who's a better shooter, you, Steph, or your dad?
My dad.
Riker, we're getting that toy now. Riker, do you go on YouTube and watch old clips of your dad? And if so, what has that been like for you to see him play back in the day?
I go on YouTube sometimes, but it's incredible, because every video I watch, he makes the shot.
What's it like to come here in Indianapolis, Indiana, where your dad was a star, and to see everybody wanting to talk to him? What's that like?
It's fun. It's
You don't mind that?
No, I don't. I don't really care too. Just it's more about him and seeing if he wants to do it or no, or just walks away.
One more from James.
You talked about the moment that you had with Steph Curry. What did that mean to you to have Steph hit a huge shot and come over and basically point you out and have that moment be shared with you?
It was the best thing, best Christmas present too, 'cause it was around Christmas. It was amazing.